Welcome back to my channel. I'm very excited to introduce someone to my channel today. He's a very talented cybersecurity engineer, application security architect, bug bounty program manager, and an ethical hacker. So, without any further ado, I will introduce Mehul Bhatt. Hi, Mehul. How are you today? And thank
Hi,
you so much
Piyush.
for joining this session.
Thank you so much for having me over. It's really good to connect again. And yeah, really excited for this.
He is very good at what he does, and looking forward to a lot more insights from you, what you have learned throughout these years. To start the video, Mehul, I would like to ask you about your journey and how exactly you started into cyber.
Sure. So, unlike like most of the people who get into cybersecurity, I had a different story. When I did my bachelor's in computer science engineering, and, I was, my path was to follow the general software engineering path, right? And I had no idea about cybersecurity. I mean, of course, we had courses about cybersecurity in our undergraduation, but uh, I had no idea that cybersecurity existed as a profession. So, of course, I was not really able to make it in the software engineering domain. So, cybersecurity was a chance that that I happened to pounce upon. Uh,
This was
yeah,
2015. Sorry to interrupt here, but
this
this was
this was in 2017. I graduated in 2017
2007.
May.
Oh.
Yes, and I did interview for regular software engineering roles as well, but I couldn't make the cut. So cybersecurity was a mere serendipity, I would say, and it so happened that I think in the March of 2017, I was helping one of my cousins set up his e-commerce website in Bombay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was there in Bombay working with him and helping him set up his e-commerce website. During my visit there, I met one of his friends who at that time was starting her own company.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened that we had a conversation about about my career prospects, what do I do, and where do I see myself now that graduation is coming closer. uh so that happened, and post my graduation sometime around August, my brother reached out to me, the same cousin, asking that, the lady, that my friend that you met, she was asking if you're still looking for jobs, and if you would be interested in a cybersecurity role.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a situation where I had no opportunity in hand at that point, and as the case is that beggars can't be choosers, I decided to take a leap of faith
Uh-huh.
and interview for that role. So the company was Arca Infosec. It was being run by Shivangi Natkarni and Samir Anja, the late Samir Anja. Samir has unfortunately passed away. And they both were like veterans in the industry. They had almost like 20 years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they are pretty well known in the industry, especially Shivangi for leading, you know, uh, all efforts across privacy, especially. So Arca Infosec were a very, very small company. We were hardly 20 people. It was based out of Pune,
Mm-hmm.
and I was, in fact, I think the second hire in the cybersecurity team, working as an offensive security consultant. So that was my first job. I was there for a year, working as an offensive security consultant, and we were mostly focusing on small and medium enterprises out of India and the Middle East. And post that, I came to Delhi. I met you, and I joined Lucidius. So uh, at Lucidius, I was there for 2 years. Yeah, my journey there. I was in a similar capacity as an offensive security consultant. It's just that the role slightly expanded to being of, I mean, the roles and responsibility expanded to being of a technical accounts manager, where basically I was handling a portfolio of clients, like an end-to-end engagement. And post that, I wanted to move. So I had like 3 years of consultancy experience now, right? And during that time, I also obtained my OSCP. So now I wanted to, shift gears and have a different experience. That's when I decided that, okay, uh, let's explore the product space now, how security works in product. And that's when I made the switch to Zynga, which is a mobile gaming company.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the first hire at Zynga in India. And even at Zynga, we were just setting up the product security team. So there were hardly, 5 people at that point in time in the ProdSec team, and largely in the overall cybersecurity team, there were hardly like 15 people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, at Zynga, my role, I mean, I started off as an offensive security engineer. Basically, now the things changed because I was doing pen tests more in the white box space rather than a black box as I used to do earlier as a consultant. And I was also working a lot closely with developers.
Mm-hmm.
And so my role was, I mean, my title was an application security engineer, but primarily I was doing a lot of offensive security stuff now for mobile, for web, and for cloud. And then I switched from the application security engineer role to the application security architect role, where now my role was to assess, enable, influence, and design, the secure usage and operations of all of Zynga's products and services, while also providing offensive security capabilities.
Yeah.
I was also overseeing and orchestrating our a bug bounty program there,
Mm-hmm.
and which basically meant, that I was creating the policies, handling communication between the different stakeholders, all of our engineering teams, product teams, and the external security researcher community. So I was with Zynga for close to, I think, 4 years, 3 years and 7 months, and after that I moved to Skyscanner.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm working as a product security engineer, and the roles and responsibilities are similar to what I was doing at Zynga as an architect. So a lot of design reviews, threat modeling, pen tests as well, and coming up with technical specification requirements, product security requirements for the tools, and also, yes, overseeing the bug bounty program.
Yeah.
So it's been 7 years now, and that's been my journey so far.
It sounds like you have a different journey. What we hear from other people, sometimes people say that they started their cybersecurity journey when they were in college, they hacked
Right.
their website. Of course, you have a different story where you went with the flow, and
Yeah.
once you were in the field, you started growing yourself within the field, learning the different ins and
Yeah. And
outs.
I started enjoying as well. I might as well add, right? I mean, it's not that, it's just because, I got something and I pushed myself into it. No, of course, I had to push myself into it, but it was because I really liked this. I mean, it was something that interested me a lot, right? So there was a genuine connection between me and the field that, okay, that made me push myself further in this field.
And apart from having like the huge experience, of course, like 7+ years of experience, you have a diverse experience. You have worked in consultancy as well as you have worked in internal team. You see a new environment altogether with consultancy. But when you
Exactly.
are in product security, you handle everything end to end just for a single network or
Product.
for a single product. That's why I wanted to understand more from you because you have experience in both the sectors. What
Right.
your experience with consultancy and what was your experience with product security?
So absolutely, I think one of the points that you mentioned about consultancy is that it gives you a very diverse experience across a wide variety of environments, tech stacks, and technologies. That's true, right? I mean, one day you're working in the aviation space, and the next day you're in the telecom space. So
Yeah.
you like it's like you are working across the breadth. That is great. One of the other things about consultancies is I think the projects are very scope based, right? You have a certain time frame within which you have to complete your assessment. It could be maybe an offensive security, maybe a pen test, or maybe a red team, or maybe a social engineering uh, assessment. So it depends. It's very task based and it's very scoped. to a particular activity and a particular time frame,
Yeah.
right? So and product, I mean, if I take product security, like you mentioned that, okay, you are focusing, purely across a single product,
Yeah.
a single environment, and a single tech stack. I would say that's not necessarily true, that you are just focusing on a single array of technology, because that's what I thought. In fact, I would agree that I had the same apprehensions that, okay, one of the good things about consultancies was that I got a very diverse experience. Now I am gambling that for a single experience, right? But that is not the case. So I'll give you two examples. My experience with Zynga. So Zynga had more than 50 user-facing products,
Mhm.
right? And all of these products had different technologies embedded into them. It's of course the underlying tech stack. I would say, let's say the infrastructure was common. Maybe they were using AWS, but the technologies that was powering those games was not necessarily the same. Some games were built on Go, some games were built on PHP, some were on Java,
Yeah.
some did not have a regular client server architecture, some were completely on a serverless architecture.
Yeah.
So it also depends on the product that the product company that you're joining, where security is being infused. So
Yeah.
uh, my experience with Zynga was no less than that of working at a consultancy. I got to work with AWS. I got to work with GCP. I got to work with Azure as well. So my experience, even while working at a product company like Zynga, was still very diverse. Now, coming to Skyscanner, Skyscanner has a single product. We don't have like 10 or 20 products.
Yeah.
But even working here, we Skyscanner uses a wide array of technologies as well, not as extensive as Zynga. So yes, you're working end to end. You are completely embedded into a particular process, into a particular product for maintaining the security posture of that particular process or that particular product. But largely, you still get to work on a diverse set of technologies, right? But I think the primary difference is the way you approach security,
Yeah.
right? As I said, that in the consultancy, right, your day-to-day work would be, maybe a short-term or a full, monthly projects. But it usually rotates, with different clients, and even the roster of of working in a consultancy might change. Maybe today you're working for a certain client A, like 3 months later there could be some other personnel who could be working for that same client,
Yeah.
right? uh, but product security, they focus on a particular product ecosystem, and you are very closely embedded with the developers as well. So you get to see the two sides. You don't only get to see the security side, you get to see the developer side as well. It's a different strategy altogether, I would say, when working in a product team, because you have to really infuse yourself there.
Yeah.
And it's not just about just doing pen tests or finding bugs or helping developers
Yeah.
fix bugs. It's also about how you can try to make the entire process of software development more secure at different stages. Like we talk about the shift left methodology,
Mhm.
right? It's not just about infusing tools as well, right? You have a SAST, an SCA, and a DAST scanner in place, and you think, okay, my job as a product security is done. No, it's not.
Yeah.
There are a lot of nuances to it. It's about how do you build a product security and an application security program, and then how do you scale that along with you know educating people, and making them part of your journey as well.
Now, if I see on YouTube widely, we'll see experiences of bug bounty hunters, but we have never heard
Right.
from a bug bounty program manager what exactly happens at the other end of this table, what exactly a bug bounty program manager does. So, if you can
Right.
put some insights there as well, that would be very helpful.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting, because as rightly you've mentioned that, it's the bug bounty hunters who take away all the limelight, and they're always, in the talks. But
Exactly.
what happens on the other side of the fence, right? That's interesting. So a bug bounty program manager, as the name says, it is someone who oversees and handles the entire operation of a particular bug bounty program of a particular organization. Say in my case, while I was working at Zynga, we had tied up with a certain vendor. So I was overseeing the entire program. What that means is when I was managing that program, my responsibilities was to ensure that I handle the end-to-end operations of that program. Now, this included a lot of things. I had to ensure that I had the right set of researchers onboarded onto my program. So every organization works in a certain in a certain domain, right? So Zynga was purely focusing. Zynga is a casual mobile gaming company, so we needed researchers who specialized in web application security, who specialized in mobile application security,
Mhm.
as well as researchers who had experience hacking into games because Zynga primarily makes games. We had some of our sister organizations as well, some of our subsidiaries, which were primarily a marketing and analytics company, but 90%, 90 95% of our IPs are gaming products. So this was like one of the things, like trying to get the best researchers onboarded to our program,
Mhm.
then preparing a policy, right? Every bug bounty program has a policy that lists down the rules of the engagement or the rules of the program as such that, okay,
Yeah.
what are you allowed to hack?
Yeah.
What all are you not allowed to hack? What are the kind of reports that, the program is expecting?
Mhm.
What are the kind of scans you are permitted or not permitted to do?
Mhm.
And this list and scope of the entire program, which basically gives you a detailed picture of what all particular assets, basically your products, your services, maybe your IP address, maybe a web application, a mobile application, that you list down for the researchers to see, okay, these are the things that I can hack.
Yeah.
So I prepared that. And along with that, you also have to have a process in place, right? So, what happens when the researcher submits a vulnerability, right? So, you need to develop a process in place, right? Okay, so once you consume the report, how is it going to be tracked internally, and what are the different stages that the report would go through? So, that is the job of a bug bounty program manager on how they integrate their internal ticketing systems, their maybe communication channels, maybe if you're using Slack or whatever, and then routing that report to the correct internal stakeholder as well, right? Also, the other thing is, I think one of the biggest things about running a bug bounty program is setting the SLAs of the program
Mhm.
as well as the bounty reward ranges, because at the end of the day, right, bounty is about money.
Yeah.
And you need to clearly define at the different bounty amounts you are going to award the researcher at the different severity levels. The SLAs are of equal importance as well because they communicate to the researcher how good your program is, whether you are um, responding to the reports on time, whether you are disbursing the bounties on time, and how quickly you are remediating your bugs. So this give, I mean, the SLAs, they tell the researcher that, okay, these are the metrics of the program on the basis of which they may or may not want to join a program.
Yeah.
And they also tell us how good and efficient we are with respect to our program, right? So you also have to create like an internal playbook as to who as to what is the process of the report handling process going to look like, because say you get 10 reports in a day, and how do you assign who is going to handle that report? So you have to sort of develop a process wherein you assign your peers maybe on a rotation basis as to who is going to handle the program on a certain day.
So I want to understand what are the challenges as bug bounty program manager.
Bug bounty programs can either be managed or they can be unmanaged. Now, managed programs are those where your vendor with whom you have tied up on the bug bounty platform, they also partake in the bug validation process. So sometimes what happens is when a report comes in,
Yes.
your bug bounty platform vendor, maybe HackerOne or Bugcrowd or
Proud.
Integrity, whoever they are, they can step in and they can do the first line of analysis and determine whether the report is valid as per the policy defined in the program.
Mhm.
And then they send it to us for further analysis,
Mhm.
right? So in our case, we had a managed program, right? So we let our vendor do the first due diligence, determine whether the report is valid, and if valid or not. If it is not, then it is marked as NA or a spam.
Mhm.
And but if it is valid, then they pass it on to us with a proper proof of concept. They reproduce the vulnerability on their end as well,
Yeah.
and then they recommend us the bounty as per the bounty defined in our rewards section.
Yeah.
So we used to do a further analysis on our end as well, because see, a lot of time what happens is you get critical reports as well, right? Now, when you get a critical report, say you get a report for a SQL injection or an RCE or for exposed credentials, right? Those are very severe issues. So you don't, uh, you have to do a further investigation of those kind of reports to analyze whether or not there has been an active malicious exploitation, because these reports might have been open, they have been there in the wild for a long time, right? And you don't know whether an actual malicious criminal might have exploited that.
Yeah.
So we do our own investigation as well. We try to reproduce it on our end, and then we forward it to the relevant stakeholder. So that's the natural process. In an unmanaged uh, program, the the organization who is running the bug bounty program, they become responsible for validating the report themselves. So they reproduce a vulnerability, try to create a proof of concept following the steps of the researcher, and then they determine the validity of the report. So
Yeah.
that's what the process of the revalidation of the bug looks like. Now, coming back to the second question, which is the challenges that we face. So one of the things that you mentioned was the high volume of false positive reports. That is a big issue, right? Because a lot of people, I think, see bug bounty as means to quick money. So they sort of send all these informative reports or reports that have actually no security or privacy implication, just to earn some easy money.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it has been the case where the ratio of false positive reports to true positive reports is very high. The noise is too high, right?
I think
One
so.
of the reasons why a lot of organizations first try and launch a private program instead of going public, because when you go public, you will be swamped by I mean, of with thousands of reports, and potentially with 90% of them being false positives. So yes, that is a big concern. How do you try to eliminate such researchers where you don't receive such low quality reports? And this is where the private program helps you a lot, because you are in control of allowing only a certain specific set of people to participate in your program. And that's what we did in our case as well. uh, we told our vendor that we are looking after a very particular set of skill set, right? And that we only wanted these kind of people to participate in a program. And of course, not just that, that was like the topmost criteria, and there were like several other criterias where we said, okay, the reputation and the signal, which determines how how good the researcher has been in terms of producing good reports, reports that have had a high acceptance rate.
Yeah.
So that needs to be taken care as well while setting up a program, because if you open it to everybody else without having certain criterias and certain filters, then you eventually run the risk of these big bounty hunters or these researchers who who might not have a very good sense of what an actual vulnerability or a bug report is, and they might just submit it just to get some easy money or just to improve their reputation on the program itself. One of the other challenges that we face is uh, with regards to the severity of the bugs that they file. So the thing that we need to understand here is researchers come from a black box perspective, right? They know that okay, there is a certain bug that exists, which is great, but what they might not be aware is about how that actually affects the business, right? In their view,
Yeah.
say somebody sends us a cross sites,
They won't
and
understand the business use case for that particular functionality
exactly.
sometimes. Yeah,
Exactly. They don't know, okay, what is the actual dollar value
exactly.
that is going to be affected if that bugs actually gets exploited, right? But because we are an internal team, we are in contact with various stakeholders. We understand our business. So we are able to better determine and judge what the actual severity of this bug would be. And also, a lot of times, I think the most common mistake that people make is, and this is also because most of the platforms follow the CVSS severity rating model, right? But what they don't take into consideration is the environmental vectors as well as the temporal vectors. They assign the severity only on the basis of the base vectors, which is not giving you the full picture of the severity of that particular issue, right? So even if you have a vulnerability where the base vector values assign a high risk rating, the temporal and the environmental vectors can bring the severity significantly down, either to medium or to low.
Yeah.
So that always becomes a big debate as to what should be the right severity. And I think the onus is always on the product side, the product team, to determine what the actual severity should be.
Now, I would like to take a step back and
Mhm.
understand more about your certifications. You have given
Sure.
OSCP and you also have GDSA.
Right,
Both of them are on different ends because GDSA would be more on the defensive end and OSCP is
right.
like offensive security exam.
Absolutely. So I think for OSCP, I totally resonate with your experience, Piyush. I think it was exactly the same thing. I actually passed my OSCP in the second attempt. I miserably failed in my first
Same,
attempt.
same.
So I knew that, I had to just ace this in the second attempt because I'd already heard a lot of stories about how difficult it is, and despite months and months of preparation, how people are not able to clear the exam, even though they are, supremely talented. It's not like not clearing or not getting an OSCP, defines your talent or your capabilities in any way. But just like your experience, I had a very different approach because I was an offensive security engineer as well, specializing in web application security. And when I started preparing for OSCP, I think my uh, because I was practicing so many machines, right? I think I almost practiced close to 40, 45 machines
Yeah.
within a month, which was really intense, right? I mean, you used to work from 9 to 5, and then 6 to 12 again, you used to prepare for OSCP. Because I was specializing in web application security, so of course, there was a certain knowledge gap that I had as well, across network security and even within web security as well. So that journey actually made me realize all the places where I needed to improve as well. Of course, in my head, I was like, okay, I already know this stuff. But then I realized, okay, there is still a gap to that. I mean, there are things where you need to build on something, and there are things which don't exist. So you have to start from scratch. So that changed my perspective in the sense of how I approached my pen testing methodology, right? It made me a lot better. It made me a lot more focused. There was more attention to detail as well. I would say I became a better pen tester. I learned, the way I used to learn things changed as well. It's not just about, how you do your job, but it's also about how you learn things, how you grasp things. So that, that entire journey of preparing for the OSCP changed my mindset altogether. And
Yeah.
it really helped me on the job as well. I could see myself, I could see my process of, pen testing changing overnight in
Yeah.
that sense.
Yeah.
And yes, of course, OSCP was like, as the name says, offensive security, right? It is for people who are purely focusing on, who are interested in doing offensive security stuff. GDSA, on the other hand, so this happened when I was at Zynga and I wanted to do something more, which was more closely related to my role as an application security architect.
Mhm.
And I happened to find this SANS course, the GIAC Defensible Security Architecture course.
Mhm.
So this course was uh, unlike OSCP. This is not completely hands-on where you have to hack into 5 machines within 24 hours and then produce a report in another 24 hours. It's nothing like that. It's an MCQ exam,
Mhm.
uh, but it's not as easy as it sounds, and it's open book as well, right? You can have all your notes with you,
Mhm.
but from the surface level it might sound that it could be very easy, but it's actually not,
Yeah.
because the exam is very conceptual. It's not something, it's not like you can rote learn and then just spit out your answers during the exam. You have to understand the concepts.
Yeah.
So the GDSA certification leans more towards the enterprise security architecture, the security of your enterprise architecture, like having firewalls, DMZs, network policies, and those kind of things. It was a huge shift in the mindset because, I came from a background where, I had to constantly hack and break into products. But now I have to think from a defensive mindset where I have to see, okay, what are the ways through which, malicious actors would break in, and how would I try to defend that? And how would I try to do that in a manner where I can place multiple lines of defenses in place as well?
Got
So that was primarily the GDSA certification where I got to learn about, more defensive side of things as opposed to the offensive side of things.
My last question to you is more around the trends within cybersecurity
Mhm.
or within the technology field, and that's
Right.
around AI, uh, the changes.
The new wave.
I would like to understand how AI has affected cybersecurity. And if someone wants to get into cybersecurity, let's say in 2025, is it still a secure field after having the effects of AI? Because nowadays you have automated tools to do the assessments end to end.
Right.
There are more and more developments within cybersecurity community itself with the help of AI. How it has affected the overall career path of cybersecurity?
Mhm.
What are your views on this?
So, so let's take like the first, part of the question, which was like, how is AI maybe changing cybersecurity, or, what is the impact that AI has had on cybersecurity? So, of course, we're all surfing on the AI wave right now, right? It's the talk of the town. And like any other technology, AI is here to stay, whether we like it or not. We have to embrace it. And cybersecurity, for that matter, is no exception.
Yeah.
And AI with cybersecurity is going to have a huge impact on the way technology operates. So and it goes vice versa. So, AI is going to have an impact on cybersecurity from multiple lenses. Say, we would like, let's say, if we talk about the upsides of, how is AI going to improve cybersecurity, we can say that predictive analysis, AI driven threat intelligence, which can mine vast data sets for patterns,
Yeah.
which could help us, with faster identification of potential threats. Uh, in the case of, say, offensive security, maybe pen test, AI would be able to simulate attacks and identify potential vulnerabilities at scale and speed. The biggest example I would say is Project Zero, which is Google's team that came up with their project called Big Sleep, right? So researchers from Google's Project Zero and Google DeepMind, they were able to uncover a first real world vulnerability
Mhm.
using using a large language model, and uh, they were able to actually exploit a stack buffer underflow in SQLite. So the results are already there, and this is a very positive impact where you are able to find such esoteric findings with the help of AI. So of course productivity is going to massively increase in this space, right? And there are tons of other examples as well where AI is going to have a very positive impact in the way cybersecurity operates. Even uh, from from an operations perspective, right? It's going to, at the end of the day, largely improve things, reduce burden on people, and improve their productivity. Now let's see the downsides, right? With every evolving technology, it always has a security aspect to it, and with AI there are going to be AI driven attacks as well, right? You have deep fakes, you have and advanced phishing campaigns, and so these kind of things, and even OWASP has, they listed out 10 risks associated with LLMs. So uh, we are already aware that AI has certain downsides, and how security is going to be impacted through it, right? Uh, I think one of the examples could be, so there was this organization called Mua.ai, where they had a bot where people could converse with,
Mhm.
and that got exploited, which affected almost 2 million people, where their personal conversations were leaked.
Mhm.
So there are instances where AI is being exploited as well, and AI is helping us as well. So uh, lots of things are going to be impacted both in the positive and the negative way. It's just that we have to embrace this new technology and try to come up with solutions where we think how best this can help us improve the way we do uh, cybersecurity. Basically, whether it's product security, whether it's offensive security, whether it's malware analysis, or even for the SOC. So I think AI is here to stay, and cybersecurity, and the bar is only going to get raised. Not just for cybersecurity, but for everyone involved in the tech field in general.
Mhm. Mhm.
And now, coming to the second part, like, is cybersecurity still a safe space? Because if we talk about how we are going to automate a lot of things in the cybersecurity space, like the discovery process or the exploitation process or maybe the processes, then what is it there for the security engineering side, right? See, with every technology, it's not like we are going to lose our jobs. This was the same hoopla that was created when automation came into being, right? People thought, because automation is coming now, everybody will lose their jobs. No, it is just going to raise the bar of that particular industry. So, the hiring bar would get raised. It's not that the entire segment of the industry would get eliminated, right? With AI coming in, systems are going to get more complex. With systems getting more complex, there are going to be more complex vulnerabilities. With more complex vulnerabilities, you would require people to fix those complex vulnerabilities, right? So the professional demand would still be there.
Yeah.
Uh, Also with AI, the other thing is compliance and regulation, right? Uh, every government is trying to introduce stricter and more stringent data protection and cybersecurity regulations.
Yeah.
With AI coming in, this landscape will change as well, right? In the way uh, you know we see data, and we see how AI is going to affect our lives. The other thing which will always be there in cybersecurity, right? We have seen so many tools. We have seen so many SaaS tools, DAS tools, so many automated systems coming in place which have tried to reduce the burden of human interference, right? And yet, we still rely on human intelligence.
Yeah.
So even with AI, the cases remain. going to remain the same, right? Even the best of the best AI systems, they are still going to need human experts to, to configure, to validate, and interpret the results. So even with AI coming in, people are still going to be there, right? The other thing is, as we see in the cybersecurity industry, especially the massive shortage of skilled talent, right? I mean, most of the cybersecurity teams across organizations are still understaffed, right? And we still need people to fill in these roles. AI is not going to replace them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my last question to you. Thank you so much again for joining this session. And for our viewers, if you want to connect with Mehul, I would put in his LinkedIn in the description section so you can connect with him. And thank you so much again, Mehul. I think we'll have more and more conversation in future.